Imagine you're promised the keys to your own house, but for almost 10 years, nobody actually hands them over. Well, that's pretty much the situation for Nepal's provinces. A recent, really high-stakes meeting between a new prime minister and some very frustrated provincial leaders could finally unlock a decades-old promise and completely reshape how the country is run.
So picture this. On one side of the table, you've got Nepal's new prime minister who's just weeks into the job. And on the other side, you have the chief ministers of the country's provinces who've been waiting years, literally years, for the power they were promised. The stakes just couldn't be higher as they finally sat down to hash out the future of federalism in Nepal.
To really get what's going on, think about it like this. Nepal's constitution basically gave the provinces a super detailed blueprint for a house. It's a great plan. But for all these years, the central government just hasn't provided the essential stuff you need to actually build it. You know, the bricks, the tools, the workers. So the provinces have the plan, but their hands are completely tied. They can't build the thing. And that really gets to the heart of this whole debate. It is a classic case of having power on paper, but not in practice. All these promises of autonomy are written down right there in the Constitution, but the follow-through, the execution, it's been missing in action for years. You know, this frustration has been building for a long, long time. The federal structure itself was set up way back in 2015. Since then, Nepal has had 2 full rounds of provincial elections, one in 2017 and another in 2022. And yet, here we are, nearly a decade later, and the basic things needed for that federal system to actually work still aren't there. That is a long time to wait for the tools you need to do your job. And that long wait has created this massive disconnect. I mean, look at this. The 2015 Constitution promised strong, independent provincial governments with their own specific areas of control. But the reality on the ground, they're completely hamstrung. They're lacking the laws, the money, and the basic authority to work the way they were designed to.
So what are the province's biggest complaints? What are they actually asking for? Well, their grievances pretty much boil down to 3 huge gaps that are stopping them from being able to govern effectively. Let's break them down.
Okay, first up is the legislation gap. The Constitution gives provinces all these exclusive powers, right? But here's the catch. They need specific federal laws to actually use them. Critical bills, things that would let them manage their own government employees and police forces, have been stuck for years. Without those laws, the provinces just can't make a move.
The second problem, and this is always a big one, is money. Provincial leaders are saying that the budget they get from the central government is actually shrinking, and they feel like the resources aren't being distributed fairly at all. With a new federal budget being worked on as we speak, they're demanding a much more equitable slice of the pie. And third, and this is absolutely critical, is the policing problem. Can you believe this? The Constitution says the provinces are responsible for law and order, but they don't have any police under their command. A law to transfer police to provincial control was passed years ago, but it's never been implemented, so they can't actually enforce the law.
I mean, this quote from Madhesh's Chief Minister Krishna Prasad Yadav just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures how absurd the whole situation is. How can you possibly be responsible for security when you have no one to call? It's a mandate without any of the means to carry it out. So, with all these grievances laid out so clearly, how did the new prime minister respond? Well, this is where the story takes a turn, because he took a very different approach from his predecessors, and it seems like things might finally be about to change. According to the people who were actually in the room, this wasn't your typical stuffy political meeting. Not at all. The prime minister apparently broke with protocol. Instead of everyone giving formal speeches, he jumped into this candid 3-hour-long discussion, asking questions, sharing his own views. This whole interactive style just created a much more productive vibe. And out of that discussion came some actual concrete promises. The prime minister laid out a 4-step action plan. First, he promised to prioritize that critical legislation, starting with a key civil service bill within just 45 days. Second, he committed to a fair budget. Third, he promised to actually use the official Inter-Province Council to solve disputes. And finally, he vowed to hold federal staff who are working in the provinces more accountable. In this quote right here about the budget, this was so important. The prime minister directly tackled that fear of political favoritism, promising that how resources are distributed would be fair and just, not based on politics. For the provincial leaders, that was a huge, huge reassurance. So let's wrap this up. What's the key takeaway from all this?
After years of pure frustration, what was the mood after this big meeting, and what does it all mean for the future of federalism in Nepal?
The big takeaway really is one of cautious optimism. The chief ministers walked out of that meeting feeling hopeful. They described the prime minister as clear and positive. Now, of course, actions speak louder than words, but having this kind of significant shift in tone right from the very top is an absolutely crucial first step.
The Prime Minister's final message was just a powerful call for cooperation. The idea here is simple. The federal and provincial governments aren't enemies. They're supposed to be partners in this huge project of building the nation together.
And that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? Everyone is feeling encouraged by this new dialogue, but after almost a decade of delays and excuses, the real test is whether these hopeful words will finally turn into the decisive action needed to make Nepal's federal system a reality. I guess only time will tell.